This is a relay project.
Real Talk starts right now. Here's Ryan Jesperson.
Well, I know that a lot of you have been waiting for today for a long time, at least for 3 weeks, as about 750,000 Alberta students head back to the classroom, as just over 50,000 teachers who had been striking up until a short time ago will also head back to class, but not under the circumstances certainly that they were hoping for. And I guess we're about to find out in a moment from Alberta's Education Minister how the Ministry of Education and how Alberta's UCP government is feeling about it. As you know, in particular, of course, if you've caught our most recent episode on the 27th of October. Supriya Dwivedi teed this up for us on the 28th, our most recent episode. We heard from political scientist Dr. Dwayne Brad about this, about the government essentially ending the strike by, big dogging the teachers by pulling a lever, not an unprecedented one, but certainly the nuclear option, invoking the notwithstanding clause, imposing a 4-year contract agreement on the teachers, and it's not landing well. You've heard, if you've been paying attention to the news, from labor leaders, including Gil McGowan from the Alberta Federation of Labor and the Common Front. That's the bigger deal here, and I'll spend more time on that in just a moment. The Alberta Federation of Labor is one thing. The Common Front is 24 different Alberta unions representing about 300,000 workers. They've been meeting over the past couple of days, and they have an announcement coming up several hours after we do this show. Everybody's wondering what they're going to say and what this could mean for the labor movement, for negotiations moving forward involving this government. They're not happy about it, but kids are headed back to school, and many people are happy about that. The question remains, let me put it this way, as Dr. Dwayne Brad said on the show yesterday, basically everybody agrees that the kids had to get back to class. Not everybody agrees with how they're getting back to the class, with the levers that the government pulled. We'll ask the education minister about that. Plus, joining us today, Evan Lee, the grade 12 student down in Calgary that had his mic cut at the town hall. You remember that? This guy's turned into, basically, he's built himself into an education advocacy machine. We're going to get the youth perspective from Evan today, and Thomas Lukaszuk will join us to talk about that whopper of a Forever Canadian petition. They dropped those signed petitions off yesterday at the Elections Alberta office and shattered the goal that they were aiming for, this initiative, this movement to keep Alberta in Canada, if I might humbly suggest, exactly where it belongs. The education minister in just 1 second. I want to let you know that this episode of Real Talk is happening with the presenting sponsorship of Hansen Distillery. Real Talk, real spirits. Hansen Distillery is Edmonton's original distillery, rooted in prairie grit and a rebellious spirit. Hansen is known for authentic small batch whiskey, vodka, gin, moonshine, and unique liqueurs. They have this caramel, like, Johnny, remember this caramel coffee creamer that we had in the studio last Christmas? Somebody dropped it off as a gift.
Right, I have no recollection of that.
See, that's part of the problem, John. It lasted about 45 minutes, and we vowed to go get ourselves some more. If you're into passion, heritage, hands-on craftsmanship when it comes to what you're drinking, then raise a glass to Real Talk and real spirits with Hansen Distillery. You can visit them in person on 174th Street, 111th Ave in the Metro Edmonton region, or across the country. Check out their latest creations at hansendistillery.com. You'll find them, of course, in Alberta liquor stores as well. Hansen Distillery is proudly local, always original, made right here. Before we get to Alberta's Education Minister Demetrios Nicolaides, here's what his boss, the Premier of Alberta, Danielle Smith, had to say after the government, basically right at the kickoff of fall session at the Alberta Legislature, introducing Bill 2, the Back to School Act, forcing teachers back into class.
This deal was the last mutually agreed upon deal and proposed to teachers by the ATA in September. This deal went $300 million over the agreed upon deal proposed by the third-party mediator in May 2025.
And we're doing this because we hear teachers' concerns about classroom complexity and sizes. We want to be clear. The government wants teachers to have the resources they need and pay them a fair salary for the essential work that they do. However, Alberta's families, and more importantly students, cannot sustain any more learning disruption.
If this legislation is passed, teachers and students will be back to work starting on Wednesday, October 29th. We wish we did not have to take this step and that we could have reached a negotiated agreement. We encourage the Alberta Teachers Association leadership to work with us to find an effective path forward.
All right, so that's the Premier. We wish that we didn't have to do this. Well, of course, the bill did pass, as you might expect, and the president of the Alberta Teachers Association, Jason Schilling, was there to watch it happen, and as you might expect, none too happy.
I don't have prepared remarks because I don't know how you prepare for something like what we just saw in the legislature today. We saw this government, instead of finding a negotiated path towards a settlement that respects teachers, students, and their families, we saw a government bully. We saw a government use the legislature to ram through what they feel is a fair settlement and then use the notwithstanding clause to prohibit the rights of teachers. And this is a broader conversation for all Albertans. If they're willing to do this for teachers around collective bargaining, for our schools, for our students, for the people who work with them, then they're willing to do it for everybody in this province.
So there you have Jason Schilling lighting a fire under other public sector workers, other union members across the province. But let's get to Alberta's Education Minister, Demetrios Nicolaides, joining us on the show this morning. Good morning, Minister, and thank you for your availability. The ATA president says that teachers were bullied, that your government rammed through legislation. What's your response to him?
Well, of course, I don't share the same characterization. We've been at the table trying to negotiate a settlement for the past 18 months. We had in the spring of this year an agreement between both the government and the union leaders that was satisfactory to both parties. We put that forward and the union leaders recommended that deal to their members. However, their members rejected that. We asked the union to come back and provide us with an alternative, and they came back and made a counter proposal. We subsequently accepted that counter proposal. They put that again to a vote to their members, which again was rejected. They provided another offer that was $2 billion more than the current offer we had on the table. And so instead of closing the gap, we're actually widening the gap. And so it was clear that we were moving further apart. And that's why our government requested that the ATA union leaders participate in enhanced mediation, because we shouldn't be moving further apart after 18 months of negotiation. We should be narrowing those. The offer to participate in enhanced mediation was rejected. And after our students being out of the classroom for 3 whole weeks, we had to take these steps to ensure that students get back into the classroom where they belong.
We've got some, obviously a lot of commentary happening in our live chat right now, powered by Park Power. Patrick says, yeah, we wish we didn't have to do this. You guys ignored several other options and went directly to the nuclear destruction of rights. There were other options, including the Disputes Inquiry Board. Obviously, you know these, at least a couple of them. The Public Emergency Tribunal, one of them would have paused the strike for 30 days and introduced a third-party mediator. Why not that? The notwithstanding clause, I don't have to tell you, it's a big deal. It gets national attention.
Yeah, it is. Of course, it's a significant decision. It's a significant step, and there's no question about that. It is an important part of our Constitution, and it is there established and something that was fought for back in the early 80s by Premier Lougheed for precisely these types of circumstances, where the legislature believed it would be in the ultimate public interest to proceed with legislation. That gives the legislature primary supremacy. And as you noted, there are other measures, and we evaluated those other measures, but ultimately determined that they would not work. You mentioned a dispute inquiry board, and as you correctly mentioned, that would pause things for 30 days. And this is our challenge. We could potentially see a situation where students would return to the classroom for 30 days, and if things didn't work out, we could be back on strike. That kind of disruption hurts our students. They're paying the price for this, and it's not fair to our students. And I'm not just saying this anecdotally. There are clear studies. There's a recent one from Ontario that looked at a 20-day teacher strike, where they found clear, direct, and measurable negative consequences to student academic performance as a result of a 20-day teacher strike. It's not a question of if this strike is hurting kids. It is hurting kids and children, And that's why it was important that it be stopped as quickly as possible.
Yeah, I doubt anybody would take issue with the idea that being out of class for prolonged periods of time will harm a child's educational experience. I mean, it just seems to be obvious to me. The obvious other point probably is that a child's educational experience would be compromised or harmed by a school full of demoralized teachers. And that's what they're saying they're feeling today as they head back to class. They feel demoralized. They feel disrespected, let alone the bigger picture of what this could mean for fellow union members across the province. But what's your message to teachers on the first day back?
My message to teachers is I understand their frustration. And I understand this isn't the way that they wanted things to play out. It's not the way we wanted things to play out either. We preferred to try and find a negotiated settlement. But when the last offer comes to us, it's $2 billion more than where we're at currently, and there's a refusal to participate in mediation, it seems like, of course, our options are being limited. But speaking again directly to teachers, I know they're angry, I know they're frustrated, but I really want to work very closely and carefully with our teachers. This is all about our students at the end of the day. As you said, nobody disagrees with that. We want the same thing that teachers want. We want to deliver smaller class sizes. We want to address the growing complexity that we're seeing in our classrooms. We want to give students the more customized and tailored learning that will allow them to succeed. We want the same things. I will be inviting the Alberta Teachers Association to join us on the new task force that we'll be creating, as the Premier mentioned. Let's work together. Let's find real, practical, meaningful solutions to these issues so that our kids are able to reap the benefits and the rewards.
A big part of the government's promise, not just to teachers, but to 5 million Albertans or so, is to hire 1,000 teachers a year for the next 3 years, to bring in 3,000 teachers. Now, critics have pointed out that that'll represent less than 2 teachers per school, probably closer to 1 teacher per school. Do you foresee or do you forecast a recruitment challenge, maybe a reputational damage that has been done to Alberta that may dissuade teachers from elsewhere in the country from considering moving to Alberta to pursue a profession here?
I don't foresee that, but we will be looking, of course, very carefully at all of those dynamics to recruit those additional teachers. I know that this is a really challenging time, but putting everything into perspective, we do indeed have one of the strongest education systems in all of Canada. It's not just my opinion. That's represented by international PISA rankings, where we score the very best in Canada in many areas, including math and science, and amongst the very best internationally. In addition, the new 17% increase that 95% of our teachers will receive means that they will have the highest take-home pay in Western Canada. So I think these pieces still make Alberta incredibly attractive. On the hiring of the teachers, though, you mentioned a very quick calculation of perhaps 1 or 2 teachers per classroom. No decisions have been made yet as to how these teachers and additional educational assistants will be hired. I would be hard pressed to put more teachers into a school that didn't need more teachers. I want to make an evidence-based decision so that we can direct those resources to the schools and classrooms that need them the most. So I would argue, and we haven't made a final decision, but for me, it would make the most sense that some schools might see 3 or 4 teachers and others may only see 1. We have to direct those resources to where they're needed the most.
Yeah, but Alberta may have, and I'm proud to be Albertan. I'm proud to be a graduate of Alberta schools all the way through till grade 12 and then in post-secondary. But you have to acknowledge that invoking the notwithstanding clause amid a strike, ordering teachers back to work, imposing a contract agreement doesn't exactly set an appealing table for someone that's considering uprooting their life from somewhere else in Canada. They're not going to care about test scores if they don't believe that their rights are going to be respected by the education minister or by the government. Do we agree?
Well, this has been a unique circumstance. And, the Minister of Finance, I know, spoke to this, and recognizing that we've been working to negotiate for 18 months. We had an offer on the table for enhanced mediation, which was refused outright by union leadership. So this is a very unique and extraordinary circumstance requiring this extraordinary step. I would suggest that this is not something that would occur on a regular basis. But again, we want to make sure that our students return to the classroom and that we're able to allocate these resources in terms of new teachers, more EAs, where they're needed the most so that we can support student learning. That is the paramount consideration in everything that we do.
Minister, I want to make sure we give some audience members a voice here. Rob wrote in from Wetaskiwin. He's a parent of 2 high school-aged kids. Says it's been interesting to watch the education minister try to explain why we got to this point. He's failing to mention teachers rejected enhanced mediation because the government would refuse to negotiate on the main issues. He's suggesting the notwithstanding clause was needed because negotiations got nowhere after 18 months. You're saying that right now, but he says there wasn't much negotiation. He says there's been gaslighting from this government, but he says more and more people are aware this hasn't been done out of interest for the kids. If the kids' interest was top of mind, there wouldn't have been a strike at all. Adam says the ATA has only ever gone on strike when both wages and class conditions have reached a breaking point. He says using the notwithstanding clause after refusing to return to the bargaining table for a week when they had other options shows a premeditated assault on our rights and bad faith bargaining. He wonders if this group, historically reasonable and willing to help the province, is worthy of having foundational rights taken away in a historically unique way. What is the threshold of reasonable for taking other people's rights away? It's obviously landing with a thud with a lot of people. Can you talk to us about the consideration that went into invoking this clause, what the cabinet conversation was like, if there was a recognition or an acknowledgement of the stakes at play here, including in the bigger labor movement?
Well, regrettably, I can't speak to or divulge cabinet conversations. That would be a violation of cabinet confidentiality. Regrettably, I can't do that. But I can say that this was a decision that was not taken lightly. It involved several hours of extensive conversations over the course of multiple days. It's not something that was just done in a very quick manner. As I mentioned earlier, we looked at all of the other measures. We talked a little bit here about a dispute inquiry board and weighed the pros and cons of that and other measures. And we spent extensive time looking at all of those different possible routes and determined that this was the best possible route for us to pursue. And again, I recognize that many of our teachers are frustrated with this decision. It doesn't mean, though, that we stop working. We have to work towards reducing class sizes. There's no question. We acknowledge that. There's no question that we need to work towards improving classroom conditions. But after 18 months and 2 failed votes that was supported by the union leadership, we have to take steps to make sure that kids are not out of the classroom for a longer period of time. It hurts their academic, social, and psychological well-being. That must always be, above everything else, the most paramount consideration. That being said, we have to get our students back to the classroom, but these conversations can continue and will continue. I will be inviting the ATA to join us on the task force we're creating so that we can address these issues. And again, I know there's a lot of frustration, but I'm confident that we can address these issues together.
Okay, yeah, we'll acknowledge that all the teachers will be working under that 4-year imposed contract, despite the fact that they'll be participating in that task force. You've acknowledged that the Alberta is Calling campaign, that Alberta's population explosion has obviously contributed to the crunch that schools are feeling in the classrooms. You've noted that federal immigration policies and an influx of new Canadians has exacerbated that pressure on classrooms. This is just the sense that I'm getting. I've never heard you say this, but you get the sense that a class size cap was never on the table, that's something that the government wouldn't agree to. There have been instances in other provinces where that has been included in agreements with the teachers. Why not in Alberta?
Yeah, I was actually just reading a little bit more about this last night and looking at the different approaches that different provinces take. And there's no surprise, a wide array of how student-teacher ratios or class sizes are managed. Saskatchewan, as an example, does not have any type of class size caps. What they agreed to in their last collective agreement was this concept of complexity teachers. that would be dispatched to schools based on the overall size of the schools. I had an opportunity yesterday to speak with my counterpart in Saskatchewan to learn a little bit more about their model. Other provinces do indeed have hard caps. Some are in collective agreements, some are in legislation. So not all provinces have caps on on class sizes. As I mentioned, Saskatchewan does not. And other provinces have what's used in the verbiage variance between soft and hard caps. So some are recommendations, and sometimes they're recommendations just at a district level. Others are hard caps at an individual classroom level. So there's quite a wide array. And we want to look at ways in which we can navigate increasing complexity. And I'll be frank, having a class of, let's say, 29 students, where 4 or 5 are challenged in speaking English, another 6 have individualized IPPs, individualized learning plans, and another 2 have significant behavioral challenges, is an impossible task for one single teacher to be able to address.
Agreed.
It's just, it's not possible. And we recognize that. And we need to find the best possible way to be able to address that so that each individual student receives the customized learning that they need. I don't know how one teacher would be able to provide English language support, 6 different tailored learnings to a variety of different kids, and manage behavioral issues that other 2 students. So the current model is not working.
That's what they're saying. And the
Correct.
Minister, that's what they're saying. And I would say respectfully to our neighbors in Saskatchewan, I've got a lot of love for Saskatchewan, but Saskatchewan faces just a tiny portion of the pressures that Alberta faces, including population growth, including general population. I think BC and Ontario are closer comparables, and both of those provinces have class caps. Ontario's regulation for elementary, they've got to have 23 or fewer pupils, right? 90% of classes have to have fewer than 20. BC has legal caps for many grades, kindergarten, 22, 24 for grades 1 to 3, 30 for grades 4 to 12. Can you acknowledge that that's a direction that Alberta may need to move in? And would you be willing to take it there if that's what the task force finds?
Well, from what I've been able to look at in the latest research, the latest approaches with respect to class sizes is actually that we need to evolve our thinking. This isn't about class sizes. This is about classroom composition. This is about classroom complexity. That is at the heart of the issue. And that's where we need to shift our thinking and our attention towards. And I absolutely do commit to taking steps necessary to address classroom composition. There's many things that'll be required there. We need to change policy. The current policy that we're using and that our school boards use to guide how they provide inclusive education to students is over 20 years old. That it needs to be re-examined, re-looked at, and redeveloped in its entirety. And we need to look at the nature of the complexity that we have. Undoubtedly, the complexity that we have from one corner of the province to the other will be substantially different. So I've directed our school divisions as recently as yesterday to provide us with in-depth classroom level specific data about the exact number of students with complexities, the type of complexity that those students have, so that we can get a classroom by classroom understanding of what's happening, so that we can dispatch resources. We talked about 3,000 teachers and the 1,500 EAs. We can dispatch them where they're needed in a manner that will relieve the pressure. But just coming back to class sizes for a quick moment, I was also looking very recently at the class size levels that are reported publicly by Edmonton Public Schools. 2 out of their 4 divisions, the first division, of course, being K to 3, then 4 to 6, 7 to 9, and then high school, 2 of their 3 divisions already exceed the 2003 Alberta Learning Commission recommended class size levels. It's only in high school and another division where where they exceed those recommended thresholds just slightly. But again, I don't think a conversation about class sizes just generally is the best way forward. I think the conversation needs to be a little bit more advanced to discuss classroom composition and complexity. That for me is the heart of the issue. That's what this task force will be solely focused on. And I mentioned policy. We will be reforming that policy entirely so that we can address this issue.
In closing, Minister, I appreciate your time. We're expecting to hear later today from labor leaders across the province, including the Common Front, representing 24 unions under the Alberta Federation of Labor, about 300,000 members. The president of AFL, Gil McGowan, as you know, called the government's move with the back-to-school bill an act of war. On this show yesterday, Dr. Dwayne Bratt presenting the idea based on some of the initiatives at the recent UCP AGM that there's a move, or at least there's a faction within your United Conservative Party, to break this teachers union entirely. What's your response to that?
My response to a comment suggesting that this is an act of war is that that's a grossly irresponsible comment to make. We cannot be pitting individuals against each other. We cannot be dividing people and inciting what I would suggest to be violence and inciting a state of complete division. Our focus has to be on our students. Our focus has to be on addressing the complexity issues that we've talked a little bit about today, on dispatching more teachers that we're committed to hiring, on hiring more EAs so that students can receive the customized learning that they need. We're committed to that, and we're going to do that. But talking about declaring war is actually dangerous rhetoric. And I think Gil McGowan should be incredibly cautious in using that type of language. It's not going to do anything beneficial in moving our province forward.
Yeah, I don't know about violence. I mean, it can land with everybody differently, but to me, it gives me the sense that they're considering a general strike, that they're considering, essentially pressing pause on a lot of things that would happen on daily life for a lot of Albertans to send a message of solidarity.
Correct, but you mentioned the correct point there, which is that it can land differently with different people. And I think as leaders, politicians, of course, and even leaders in our labor movement and other people who hold high esteem and have significant influence should be very cautious. That can land very differently with different people. I don't interpret it that way in terms of, declare war on the government. To your point, I draw the same conclusion you did about wider labor disruption, but other people might not come to that same conclusion.
Is your government prepared for a wider labor disruption? Is that something that you're talking about?
Sure. We have heard that there may be wider labor disruption, and that is something that we have talked about. I have learned in my conversations with the Minister of Finance that no union currently has an approved strike. No union has, what I mean by that is, no union has currently facilitated a strike vote amongst its members and has authorization to strike. So any strike would not be within the current accepted parameters and may require some exploration by the Labor Relations Board about activity that may not be legal in that capacity. But the priority for our government and for me is to support our children in the best possible way. Again, we've talked at length about classroom complexity. That is the number one issue that I hear from teachers. That is the number one issue I hear from parents. And I'm absolutely committed, and our government is absolutely committed to addressing it in a manner that every student will have the supports that they need to be able to succeed.
Minister, just really quickly, I recognize and I appreciate your time. I appreciate your availability. A Real Talk audience member has just passed along this tweet. I didn't see it, from law professor Ubaka Ogbogbo. He says people are rightly focusing on the notwithstanding clause. He says, but the worst part of Bill 2 is the total ban on striking until 2028 because of the scope of an illegal strike is broad. He says this means teachers are working under threat, not choice. The UCP has made dissent punishable by law. Is that accurate, what he's saying? And if so, why include that?
We haven't made dissent punishable by law, but I think what he's referring to is that the notwithstanding clause can only be in operation for 5 years. And after that, it must be renewed. So that I'm not entirely sure, but that might be what he's referring to, which is that it will remain in effect for a 5-year period.
But is that accurate, that teachers are prohibited from striking until 2028?
Yeah, that's correct. It closes this current round of bargaining, Of course, as negotiations continue for the next collective agreement, then things will be reset so that future strikes cannot occur during this agreement, this collective bargaining period, as the period has now been concluded and closed. But moving forward, they would have that option at a future point.
Okay, we've taken you into overtime. I appreciate you sticking around and taking our questions, Minister.
Take care.
That's Alberta's Education Minister Demetrios Nicolaides, wearing red, by the way, a red tie. I have to assume that's not by accident. I know that a lot of families are sending their kids to school today wearing red for Ed. We got, I don't know how many emails here. I told you we were doing the show yesterday. We had 15 or 20 of them before the show even started, probably well over 100 just about wearing red for Ed. And I know most of you will have sent your kids to school today, and some of you are probably topping up what you're sending your kids to school with as well, in the form of, what do you want to call them? Not peace offerings, but thank yous, small expressions to teachers, to administrators, and to those that the kids haven't seen for a few weeks. It's an emotional day for sure, and an emotional one for teachers. We have stacks and stacks of emails. I'm old school, guys. I print them off so I can hold them and look at them. We have them spread all over the desk here. We're going to get to as much feedback as we can as we reflect your perspectives and where your heads are at today. And you could also, if you're watching this or streaming live in our live stream presented by California Closets, you can always hit up our live chat as well on YouTube. The Education Minister joining us in our feature interview presented by Mercedes-Benz Edmonton West, the best or nothing. In just a moment, he became a household name coming up on it was about a month ago. It was the end of September that Evan Lee, he's a grade 12 student. You know, he's got his stuff together because he's an IB student, this International Baccalaureate, Sir Winston Churchill down in Calgary. And he stood up participating in town hall and wanted to press the premier on something until his mic was cut. Well, Evan's going to be joining us in just a moment. Thomas Lukaszuk coming up, a former education minister who had the pleasure, I'll use that word, the pleasure of dropping off almost 500,000 signatures, 456,000 and change on that Forever Canadian petition, sending, you'd think, a pretty strong message, not just to his fellow Albertans, but to the rest of Canada about where people stand. Is that the silent majority, those that want Alberta to stay in Canada? You have to assume so. These conversations are happening with the support of California Closets, the absolute best in the business when it comes to custom closets and storage solutions for your entire home. California Closets, proudly Canadian-owned and operated, manufacturing everything they install right here in their home province of Alberta. And they can do anything, whether it's maybe a garage transformation that you're envisioning. This is the time of year, right, where people are going to be putting away the summer stuff. You're folding up your Adirondack chairs. You're swapping out the tires on your car. You're looking for your Christmas lights. You have no idea where anything is. It reminds you that the garage is the workhorse of your home, so why not make it work a little harder for you? California Closets can custom design a garage based on your space, based on your budget, and everything they install will be guaranteed for life. You can request a free consultation today at californiaclosets.ca. Hey, just because the season's changing doesn't mean that everybody at Solar by Kubi is going on vacation. This team works around the year with current customers and future customers, processing all the paperwork so you can qualify for any available grants, right? Knock a few bucks off a solar installation, as well as engineering your install so you can be ready to go in spring. The team at Kubi, the fastest growing solar installer in Western Canada, celebrating 10 years this year with impeccable installs by a company built by engineers and electricians. You can request a free solar quote today at kubi.ca. That's KUBY.ca. Hard to believe 125 years the Royal Alexandra Hospital has been serving Canadians. This is one of the busiest hospitals in the country, proudly located right in the heart of downtown Edmonton. And this year, we're sharing stories of the echoes of the Alex. These are the lives, the countless lives that have, in many cases, been saved, that have been respected, that have been honored through 125 years. Incredible work at the Royal Alexandra Hospital. You can read all about it online, but we're proud to be supporting their capital campaign to drive support for the next 125 years. You can check out givetoroyalalex.org for more. If you're doing your own estate planning, if you're in charge of your family's philanthropy goals, Maybe if it's a one-time donation based on a tax refund you weren't expecting and you had an experience at the Royal Alex that changed your life forever. Again, that's give-to-royalalex.org. And for those of you that are thinking ahead, long-term planning for your family, wealth and retirement planning in particular, our friends at North Road Investment Council are reaching out to successful business owners that maybe haven't heard about what's called the IPP. This is the Individual Pension Plan. If you're over the age of 40 and your business is earning more than $200,000 a year, you're going to want to take a serious look at the IPP. It's a powerful retirement strategy that can provide higher tax-deferred savings over RRSPs, but it's not for everybody. And that's why the team at North Road has put together a clear, plain language white paper outlining the benefits and the challenges of the IPP so you can learn if it's right for you. You can request that today by reaching out to Marshall and Carey on their website. North Road Investment Council is online at northroadic.com. The Education Minister joining us in our feature interview presented by Mercedes-Benz Edmonton West, and Real Talkers are sounding off in our live chat. Powered by Park Power Anubius says this has become a governance issue now. Like, what, why have they not considered acquiring facts about the realities that teachers face? Why do they choose to go straight to the notwithstanding clause? The position of the government, you heard it there from the ministers, they didn't go straight to it, says we've exhausted all other options. We had no other choice. And of course, as you heard, just by the couple of emails that I read from Real Talkers, we sure appreciate you and keep them coming, friends. Let us know your personal perspectives. We're hearing from teachers, we're hearing from principals, we're hearing from parents, we're hearing from high school students. We're about to hear from another one in just a second here. Ms. B just says this is an absolute disgrace. Will says, after removing people's constitutional rights, hang on, let me clutch these pearls. Will's not buying the minister's concern about Gil McGowan's statement about an act of war, or a declaration of war, let me say. Interested to see what they're going to be announcing today. Gil McGowan, leading the charge on that, but you'll hear from, I'm imagining, a number of different labor leaders. The strength will be in the numbers there. And in particular, you'll hear Alberta Federation of Labor a lot. I would say, more specifically, pay attention to the Common Front. This is a collective, essentially, of 24 different unions representing about 300,000 members. What's that, about 3 Red Deers? Basically saying but not saying exactly right now that things could get a whole lot worse for Albertans and their day-to-day operations if public servants across the board were to go on strike. Now, that's not a guarantee. Different unions would have a different willingness to go on strike. Other unions would have different protocols to even vote on whether or not they could go on strike. And keep in mind that the teachers are returning to the classroom. You're not seeing 50,000 teachers defying the order. You're not seeing teachers continuing to stick their necks out there and stay out of the classroom. They are back in class today. You have to wonder if that may affect the perspective of other union members across the province that may have been willing or that remain willing to go on strike in solidarity. Another obvious consideration is that some of these other unions would be or will soon be participating in their own labor negotiations. And you have to wonder how hard to the wall are some of these willing unions. How significantly are they willing to disrupt their own negotiations, or in their minds, perhaps to compromise their own relationship with the government or that negotiating team to send a message on behalf of the teachers? Maybe there's no relationship to begin with. Maybe what Dr. Dwayne Bratt was talking about in our most recent episode is worth more consideration. A certain faction within the United Conservative Party that's keen on busting up as many unions as humanly possible. If you're a member of another union, if this is resonating with you, if you're a resident of another province that's listening to this, we'd love to hear your take to talk@ryanjesperson.com. Well, our next guest became a household name just about 4 weeks ago when, as a citizen, as a grade 12 student, he attended an Alberta Next town hall event in Calgary and attempted to ask the Premier a question. It's the clip that made waves across the country. We'll hear from him live in just a moment, but here's how things went down with Evan Lee.
Hi, my name is Evan Lee. I'm a Calgary high school student. Like many high school students, I'm very concerned about what's going to happen to the upcoming Alberta teachers' strike. But just an hour ago, they voted 89.5 in favor of striking.
Evan?
And my question is, why is the government handing out
Here's the thing, Evan. Evan, I applaud you coming here to speak. I don't applaud how you're trying to speak. It's not making any sense. So we're going to move along, okay? Let's go over to this microphone, okay? I know you'd love some chaos, but your parents should turn you over your knee. Let's go over here.
Oh, that's rude. That's rude. No.
All right. So that's how it all went down. We've been waiting a while to check in with this guy, Evan Lee, a grade 12 IB student out of Calgary, Sir Winston Churchill High School. Evan, welcome to Real Talk. Thanks for making time for us.
No worries. Thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah. How did it make you feel in the moment when moderator Bruce McAllister told you that you weren't making any sense and that your parents should give you a spanking?
You know, I felt the same way when Minister Horner said they were invoking the notwithstanding clause in Bill 2. I felt surprised and I felt appalled because, you know, Alberta is known around the world as a robust democracy, is known around the world as somewhere where free speech and our rights are protected. So I think for that to happen is very concerning and is something that should not be occurring, especially in Alberta, Canada.
As I mentioned, you kind of became a household name. All of a sudden, hundreds of thousands or millions of people knew exactly who you were, and I don't know much about your background, so I'll ask you to tell us a bit about it. But if you weren't already, you almost immediately became a public education advocate. Was that all part of the plan? Have you always been wired like this? Have you always had that passion for politics and education?
Actually, no. You know, I've always people started calling me an activist, and my friends actually told me to go to that Alberta Next panel because they're in Model UN and they're involved in politics. I simply just had questions about the teachers' strike, and I had been reading news because in Economics IB, one of the assignments that we have is to read news articles and make commentaries on those news articles. And something, you know, public education has always been really important to me because public education, I view it as the cornerstone of democracy. It allows each and every Albertan, each and every person to have the same opportunities for success and without, you know, financial barriers and things like that. So I think, you know, it's not just me, it's an issue that's affected a lot of different youth and students across the province. They've been reaching out about, you know, they've seen firsthand the class size increases that have been happening across the province. You know, I know at my school, it's hard to find a class that has under 35 students, and some go to 50 or even 60.
So, Evan, your last month, I would imagine, has been a little bit different than you may have anticipated, and not just because of the teachers' strike, but my understanding is through Reddit and other online forums, you've been hearing from other students across the province, in particular high school students, many who you may not or likely did not know before. People are almost treating you as a sounding board. What have the last 4 weeks been like?
Let me put it this way. It's been really heartening to see so much support and also feedback from a lot of different, especially students and youth, and they've been saying a lot of the things that we've been hearing a lot of the time lately. Things like class sizes and things like class complexity, that they see these issues and they need to be addressed, and they haven't been addressed for a long time. I've had students from Lethbridge contact me. I've had students from Edmonton, families from Calgary as well. Even Red Deer have reached out. And, you know, it's basically unanimous, at least among students and youth, is that we see what our teachers do every day. We see how their job conditions are, and that directly reflects our learning conditions.
Evan, I was never smart enough to qualify for IB, but I knew a couple people that did this International Baccalaureate program. Can you explain to us, like some people are wondering why you're available to be talking to us at 9:15 in the morning on the first day that students are back in classes? Is your study self-directed, or how does it work? Help us understand what your educational experience is like right now.
Of course. So IB is kind of an accelerated program. Right now, I have a spare. Well, technically a spare, but I do have a scheduled French class right now, which I am also studying. And IB as a program, I feel like it directly reflects, you know, Albertan Canadian values, things like critical thinking, things like, you know, this public education system. And I think IB is a very good opportunity for a lot of students. And, you know, we've seen firsthand some of the impacts of not funding public education adequately, especially in the IB system where we've had teachers, have to source textbooks online, and we are not able to bring textbooks home and things like that.
Evan, I'm sure that you saw some of the criticism around your appearance at the Alberta Next panel, which, by the way, me personally, it drove me nuts to see you face that fire. I think seeing how old are you? Are you 16, 17, 18?
17.
Seeing a 17-year-old keen to participate in the democratic process, I think that we need more of that. And I hope that you were not dissuaded from future participation. I get the sense that you're not. But there were people alleging that you hadn't written your own question. There were people calling you an NDP plant or an operative, an activist. I mean, what's the truth? Did you have a relationship with Naheed Nenshi or with Team NDP before you headed in there? Was the question supplied to you? Did you write it yourself?
No, that is absolutely not the case. I think Gen Z as a generation, we are seeing a lot of political interest, and especially amongst a lot of my peers in the IB program, we are very passionate about the issues that affect us. And the issues that affect youth will be the issues of the next generation. And, I might be a little bit more well-spoken than some other youth. But as I've said, this is the opinion of all the youth in this province, where us students are advocating for our public education because it directly affects us.
So I'm not going to ask you to, speak on behalf of hundreds of thousands of students. But, based on the messages that high schoolers from across Alberta have been sending you, based on where your own head is at, based on what strikes me to be a pretty keen ability to put your finger on the pulse of where the population's at, where are high schoolers' heads at right now? I would imagine there's a certain degree of relief that students are getting back to school, that the ball can get rolling, that post-secondary goals, maybe as soon as next year, won't be compromised or killed. But there's also a bit of a punch in the gut that teachers are feeling right now. And I would imagine that that'll be palpable in hallways and in classrooms. Where's your head at, and what are you hearing from your peers?
Here's as students, we're somewhat happy to be able to learn again. And we're really happy to be able to go back into the school community and socialize with everyone again. But at the same time, we're going into the same class sizes and conditions as 3 weeks ago. As I said, we had at my school not even a class lower than 35 students. So we still face those same challenges where it's difficult to get personalized help. And, I saw that the government has been using the reasoning of protecting our student well-being as a reason to kind of take away the rights of our teachers by using the notwithstanding clause. But at the same time, I think there's also the other side of that coin, right? They're also somewhat ignoring our well-being because, they said that clear studies show that, prolonged striking has an effect on our learning socially, academically, psychologically. But clearer studies also show that class sizes over, the mid-20s are significantly affecting our learning also. You had Filges et al. From Campbell Systematic Reviews, and countless other studies which say that, class sizes, and we don't even need to look at the scientific side of things. You can look at, personal experiences from youth that have reached out. So again, I think the general consensus among students is that we're happy to be able to learn again. We're excited to, return to the school community. But we're also really disappointed that, really nothing useful has come out of these 3 weeks of, disruption to our learning.
Evan Lee, a grade 12 IB student out of my hometown of Calgary. Good on you for your advocacy and your involvement. And we're wishing you all the best with your future plans, Evan. We'll hope to keep in touch with you.
Thank you.
You bet. Thanks for doing that. That's Evan Lee joining us courtesy of Mercedes-Benz Edmonton West. Let us know what you think about that. That's the type of young person that you want to be graduating from your school system. So I guess Evan Lee can be a feather in the cap for Alberta. Johnny, maybe he can be the feature. He can be the subject of our Alberta Wins feature presented by Play Alberta coming up tomorrow. That feels pretty good. I know a lot of people are kind of feeling a little bit down in the dumps right now. Kind of a tough day. We got an email from Gillian, who's a wonderful friend of the show, a junior high school teacher in the Metro Edmonton region. She sent us an email right as we started our live stream today at 8:30 Mountain, 10:30 Eastern. She says the kids are less vibrant. I'm distraught. Colleagues are distraught, avoiding eye contact. I guess like me, they're trying hard not to cry. Gillian says, if I turned up on your doorstep in tears looking broken, would you leave your child in my care? Would you put me in charge of 36 kids? She says, I'm not sure where others are finding hope this morning. My hope resides in a little red planning book I started under Premier Kenney. I wrote on it, moving to Ontario plan. I hope I never need it. It's on my desk now, and it's what I'll be working on instead of all that above and beyond stuff I would usually spend my time on. When you don't feel valued, it's important to invest your time and energy in you instead of the system that hurts and drains you. That from Gillian. You can send us your response or your own thoughts to talk@ryanjesperson.com. Former Education Minister Thomas Lukaszuk in just a moment. He's doing, well, talking about going above and beyond. His advocacy for Alberta remaining in Canada, which is where I strongly believe Alberta belongs, has resulted in a remarkable display shortly after his appearance on this show. And Johnny, we wanted to make sure we got him back. What a poker face. Let's grind his gears in a second. But first, it is Wednesday. We'll grind Thomas's gears in good-natured fun a little bit out of the gates here. But every single Wednesday, courtesy of our friends at Tourism Jasper, we shine a light on what's happening in that crown jewel of Canada's national parks. That's Jasper National Park. It's MyJasper Memories, proudly presented by Tourism Jasper. And I want to put a couple of things on your radar. Number one, with Halloween coming up, I'll get to that in just a second. We're going to remind you about that Creatures Return event. But first, Tourism Jasper has just announced, you'll probably be hearing about it first right here on Real Talk, their new Jasper Christmas Mug Trail. I love this idea. This is a festive new initiative that's designed to spread holiday cheer and showcase Jasper's incredible local restaurants. It runs from November 14th all the way through to Christmas Day. So November 14th to December 25th, you lucky ducks, whoever's going to be out in Jasper on Christmas Day. Participants will be able to purchase a limited edition Jasper Christmas mug. If you're watching on YouTube or socials, we're showing it to you right now. Designed by a local artist. They did just a beautiful job with it. And it includes 5 vouchers that are redeemable for festive beverages at participating restaurants. Okay, so there's 2 pricing options, $50 for the mug and the 5 vouchers that'll include alcoholic beverages, or $30 for mugs that will include non-alcoholic beverage vouchers. And then the participating restaurants are going to craft a special holiday drink with a signature twist that will reflect their unique style. And if I know anything about Jasper's restaurants, they will go, they're going to blow your doors off on this one. Think like hot toddies and mulled wine, maybe a creative take on hot cocoa or something entirely original. The drinks will be served in each participant's Jasper Christmas mug as you bring that mug along with you to enjoy festive creations at participating locations. What a fun afternoon or evening. That sounds perfect to me. That's the Jasper Christmas Mug Trail. You can learn more about it on the website. That's jasper.travel, and we'll keep you posted on this in weeks to come. I just absolutely love this. Plus, of course, Halloween is upon us, and we wanted to remind you that Jasper, for the first time ever, if you check it out at jasper.travel, I'm showing it on my screen right now. This is their Creatures Return event. Jasper's first ever Halloween takeover, all right? Step into Jasper's mysterious world of the dark with a family-friendly event. Well, it's designed for folks of all ages, where Jasper's ghost stories will stir to life, shadows will linger after dark, and the mountain night hums with silent disco beats and the energy of late-night parties. Experience Halloween like never before. They've got eerie theatrical ghost tours. I love the idea of the silent discos, the late-night vibes at the Dead Dog, one of my favorite pubs on planet Earth. Jasper will transform into a spellbinding stage for spooks, style, and spirited fun. They're inviting you to dress up, explore, and let the dramatic mountain landscape set the scene for an unforgettable Halloween weekend. It's not too late to make your plan and to get out there and enjoy Creatures Return in Jasper National Park. You can find more details at jasper.travel. We'll put the direct link into the show notes on the podcast and on YouTube. Every Wednesday, our friends at Tourism Jasper proudly present MyJasper Memories right here on Real Talk. So, Johnny, when we talked to Thomas Lukaszuk on our Friday episode, that would have been the 24th of October, and he was talking to us about the 28th, their deadline, the date that they had to drop off these boxes, these signatures, these petitions, the Forever Canadian Initiative, and he told us they had to get to 300, and he said, we don't know exactly how many have, but we're not quite sure. And you and I kind of got a little adrenaline shot, like we got to do whatever we can to help them hit their goal.
Yeah, and but I think Thomas is a smart guy. He knew what he was doing because when I heard him, I actually heard him on the radio the following morning, and he said something like, well, I'll let him explain it when he comes on, but he said, he was asked the question, how'd you sleep last night? And he's like, I slept like a baby, and that doesn't mean I was up crying all night, if you know what I mean.
Yes.
So, but this is almost 500,000 signatures. This is a resounding showing of Albertans who are proud to be not only Canadian, but proud to be Albertans and want to stay in this country, right? And you can't deny that now. You have people trying to downplay it on the other sides of the aisles or people who are for separation. You can't. I mean, look how many people voted in the last election. This is a big percentage of those people.
This is absolutely nuts, Thomas Lukaszuk, to walk down to Elections Alberta with boxes and boxes and boxes of signed documents containing 456,365 signatures. Be honest, when we were talking to you on the 24th, when we were talking to you on Friday, did you already know that you had surpassed your goal by more than 50%?
We knew we were at the magic number.
Look at that coy smile.
But we didn't know how well we did, because petitions were actually coming in up until the moment that I was handing in the boxes. One lady ran up and gave me 23 more signatures, so I managed to slip it into a box. But we didn't know. We had no idea we will do this well. So I'll tell you this: we had an internal game within our campaign, and we were guessing how many signatures we will get, and my guess was 330,000. I didn't think we would go beyond that. The rest of it is just icing on a cake.
So you send a message loud and clear right now, and I think in a number of different directions. I think that this sends a message to Albertans in general. I think it sends a message to Alberta separatists. We saw thousands of them gather at the Alberta legislature over the weekend waving the Alberta flag and calling for Alberta to leave. It also sends a message, I think, to the rest of Canada. Was that kind of the goal the whole way along?
And even further, even abroad. It's 365,000, I should say 456,000 Albertans. That's almost 500,000 of eligible voters sent the clearest message that one can possibly send. It's the biggest petition, I'm told, in the history of Canada, saying that we see Alberta's future within Canada, and we reject any idea of separatism. The message couldn't be more loud and clear. So it's primarily to our premier and her caucus to do the right thing now and put it before legislature, and let's have MLAs vote on it, as opposed to further divide Albertans and have a referendum. It's a message to Ottawa that even though things are not perfect and never have been, but there's a lot of work to be done, but separatism is not a threat that Alberta will be hanging over the rest of Canadians' heads. And lastly, to the world outside, that this jurisdiction is a safe jurisdiction to invest in. You can do business over here. You can move to Alberta. You can raise your family in Alberta and not worry that you will have to pack your bags soon because Alberta will become a separate country. So I hope that it inspires investment confidence in our province and in our country de facto.
I don't want to be the Donnie Downer here, but we did fact check the largest petition in Canadian history. Back in 2010, former BC Premier Bill Vander Zalm collected about 700,000 signatures to fight the HST. But I would love to see this one sit in its own category as the largest. Is there anything that would set those two apart? This is more a question for over beers as opposed to a serious question.
Yeah, and I'm not sure. It doesn't matter which one is the biggest, but you just cannot reject 500,000 Albertans sending a very clear message. So, I hope that this message resonates. I hope that it inspires our premier to do the right thing. But there's another benefit. It's not just about numbers. Actually, the big benefit is that Albertans have started a movement, some kind of a community that is nonpartisan, where they are willing to sort of speak up and take over the agenda from those who were hijacking our flags and our messaging. And that is the clearest actually message that I've been getting across as I was traveling on the Unity bus. Albertans saying, thank you for giving us a voice. And look what happened since. We have 2 additional petitions already filed, and I anticipate there will be more. And this is not about petitions, but this is about Albertans taking back their voice and speaking up and not willing to be silenced by a small but very obnoxious and vocal minority.
Thomas, one of the most remarkable things, I think, is that you required 294,000 signatures. That's what's required to initiate a possible referendum. You told us on this show that you weren't going to wait for new legislation to kick in that drops that threshold down to 170,000. You said that you were confident, I'll paraphrase what you told us, that you were confident that you could get to 300. Instead, you get it up to 456,000. Now you're sort of sounding like you hope the premier does this, or you'd like to see the premier do that. You've spent years and years and years at the Alberta legislature. Many of us have not. Help us understand what options are in front of the premier, what she is compelled or even legally required to do, and give us the sense of whether or not she can just throw this in the recycling bin and do absolutely nothing with it.
Well, I hope that she does the right thing, but I know that those who signed this petition demand certain action from our premier. So there are 2 things that will happen. Number one, the Chief Electoral Commissioner now will have to validate this petition, and it will be forwarded to Alberta legislature. There, the premier will strike a committee. A majority of members of that committee will be UCP members. So basically, they will rubber stamp whatever she advises them to do, and they will give the premier, that committee will give the premier 2 choices. A, the one that I call the right thing to do, is put this question on the floor of the legislature and have all MLAs vote on should Alberta remain in Canada, and then adopt it as a government policy. And that would basically end any discussions of separatism thereafter. Or she can do, which is what I would consider not a wise thing to do, is to call a referendum. But when half a million people sign a petition, when polling over and over again shows that Albertans want nothing to do with separatism, having a referendum would be very divisive. We are already too divided, and what I was doing here was a bit of a healing process, and will be expensive. And again, it will continue undermining investor confidence in Alberta, because we would be looking at a campaign probably lasting about at least half a year, a yes and no campaign. So I certainly hope that for the benefit of all Albertans and for the benefit of our economy, the premier will do the right thing.
Do you? Part of me, you're saying that you don't want. You're saying that you don't want a referendum. I do. I want to see. I'm big on numbers. I'm big on scoreboard. I'm big on if a question. I guess it could be phrased in a number of 2 ways, right? If we'll show your website here, this forever-canadian.ca. People can check that out. And you have it there. We did it, 456,388. I've seen the number there change again. Albertans have signed the petition. The question that we asked basically was, can you remind me, do you want Alberta to stay, or do you believe Alberta should remain in Canada? Was that the question?
Correct.
Yeah.
Do you believe that Alberta should remain in Canada?
So, I'd love to see, 80%, or I'd love to see 100%. I'd love to see 80% say yes. Or if the question was, do you believe that Alberta should separate from Canada? I'd love to see 20% or lower, as sort of a message, and as something to kind of, as we saw in Quebec for at least a little while, though I'll acknowledge it's flaring up again, to put the question to bed, to put the debate to bed. For a while. I think a referendum could be productive. I think a referendum's, it's like basically, all right, well, let's do it, right? Let's go.
But the problem, scoreboards are great, for Blue Jays, but not in this case. This really is a divisive issue, and I'm saying that this process of Forever Canadian was healing, because that is exactly what literally thousands of people were telling us, that finally people started talking to each other in communities and realizing that their neighbor actually is a good guy. He not only was collecting the signatures, but maybe was signing the petition. So this was a really good process for Alberta. You call a referendum on something that we all know what the outcome of will be, vast majority of Albertans would vote to stay in Canada. But that process in itself not only is damaging to our social fabric, we have families that don't talk to each other anymore over these issues. But maybe equally importantly, our economy will suffer. Look what flirting with separatism did to Quebec. Business, small and medium-sized and particularly large businesses, just evaporated from Quebec. Till today, Bank of Montreal has its headquarters in Toronto because they packed up. Sun Life and all the major financial companies packed up. That's exactly what will happen in this province. Ms. Nancy Southern, owner and CEO of ATCO, has already told the business community in Calgary that there is negative impact on our economy because of separatism. So scoreboards are great, but why go through a painful, divisive, costly process when you and we both know that vast majority of Albertans would vote against it? This petition is enough of an indicator. I don't know what more would a premier need than 500,000 Albertans, which is quarter of the people who voted in the last election. Sign this petition. If I was given more time, or if this petition was online, Ryan, we would probably quadruple this number of signatures.
Yeah, and we'll also acknowledge, I think it's, and you made no bones about it, that you were keen on getting the ball rolling on this early to get ahead of any, let me call them, competing petitions that would seek to trigger a referendum in the entire opposite direction. In a hypothetical where would-be separatists gather the minimum threshold or more, 170,000 signatures or more, and the premier appears to be or is taking it in a direction to satiate what they're looking for, then what's your next step? I have to imagine your work here is not all said and done. You're waiting to see what happens next. The ball is now in the government's court.
Of course. And we're ready to pick up the tools again if we have to. But look, I had enough confidence in what I refer to severely normal Albertans that want to stay in Canada that I did not have to make any backdoor deals with the premier and have her lower the threshold for me. I knew that I will get under the old rules, 300,000. These rules have been relaxed for separatists and only for separatists. And now, by the way, the premier is paying the price for it because others with different issues like teachers and others are filing petitions. So I think she will regret the day she ever made a deal with separatists. But the fact is that if the premier chooses to please those 14 separatists in her caucus and her political base, some of whom are separatists, then what she will do is, as I said earlier, cause damage to Alberta. But we are ready. Because one of many advantages of having Forever Canadian is that we now have 500,000 signatories that we can rely on. We have 6,000 canvassers that we can rely on. We have some additional 5,000 signed up volunteers that we can rely on. And our logo has already gained traction. So if we have to compete to fight again for Canada in a referendum, I can tell you we're ready for this. But I certainly hope that Premier doesn't take advantage of it, because the only gain that would be attained from having a referendum is that of strengthening Danielle Smith's control over her UCP party. But it would not do any good to any Albertans or our province.
What's your message to not just the volunteers? You told us there were 6,500 or 7,000 volunteers that were out collecting signatures here. You had 456,000 plus people sign it. What's your message to them, in particular to the people that were pounding the pavement, hanging out at farmers markets, going to soccer games, setting up in their own neighborhoods to get those signatures collected?
Well, I personally could not thank them enough. I've never seen anything like this. There has never been a campaign like this in Alberta where you would have, over 6,000 people engaged almost full-time hours everywhere, popping up in dog parks and farmers markets, rain or snow. This commitment was incredible. But I think it's fair to say that all of Canada, Canadians think, you have already started receiving emails from Canadian Senate and other places. And Canadians are thankful to those volunteers for generating those signatures and for showing the rest of Canada and the rest of the world that Canada is a solid country that cannot be divided, that our differences between provinces can't be exploited by foreign countries to their benefit. Alberta is not an outlier province. We're as proud of being Canadian as other Canadians are, from sea to sea to sea.
I'll acknowledge that last time you were on, by the way, our live chat was lighting up our super chat, and Real Talkers started throwing cash at you by way of our super chat, and Real Talk agreed to match those donations. I'm not sure if you saw. Yeah, it was $390, which was like,
not bad.
I think we ran it over the course of half an hour, so it was pretty good. And they're throwing dough at us again. This is getting very expensive for this show, Thomas. But Tony and Les and Super Chat Ken, even Gizmo, who's watching us from New Brunswick, is
awesome,
contributing
Gizmo.
here, and happy to see it. Tony, though, I want to get to this. She says, if Thomas can inspire a province to loudly state it wants to stay in Canada, he must get back and lead the province, please. Obviously, Tony alluding to the option that you may have to re-enter politics based on everything that's happening right now, including within the Conservative movement in Alberta. Is there a window that you consider where you may re-enter public service?
You know, this is not why I did it, but I have to tell you, this question has been asked over and over again. I haven't held a party membership of any political party in Canada in more than 10 years now. So I am not really affiliated with any political party. As you know, to run for leadership of this province, you have to be a leader of a party. And that's something that I haven't really explored. This thing has kept me busy. But there's no doubt we have created a movement of Albertans who are sick and tired of this whole left and right concept. Most people who signed this petition, but particularly our volunteers, I would call them pragmatists. You know, they just want this province to be a good province for everybody, to be a prosperous province, not to be at odds with other provinces and Ottawa. And they don't give a damn whether this comes from the right side or the left side. They just say, do the right thing. Don't be so partisan. So there is a movement, definitely, but you know, I haven't considered leading it in a political sense. This is more of a social sense.
Yeah, you don't have a party membership right now, isn't that due in part? Wasn't it like a short time ago the UCP revoked your membership? Didn't that happen? Do you think?
No, they didn't. They wouldn't sell me one.
They wouldn't sell you one. Okay.
Yeah. So I ripped up my PC membership where the PC party joined the Wild Rose, right under Kenny.
Okay.
But since I thought it would be a good idea to show up at the UCP leadership review and cast my ballot. You know, that's another way of participating in democracy. But to do that, you have to buy a membership. So I actually wrote and asked if I could purchase a membership, and they told me that I simply don't live up to their standards. So I could never be a UCP member.
I think they cited the cell phone bill incident, you know, many years back.
Sure.
That's a remarkable situation. A Conservative former deputy premier denied a membership in the new Conservative Party. I've
been kicked out of better places, Ryan.
Okay. How are you wrapping your mind around? I mean, you and I briefly touched on this, and people can check out our October 24th episode when we asked you to tap into your experience as a former teacher, as a former education minister, on what was happening. I think that there were rumblings that the UCP would consider invoking the notwithstanding clause to get teachers back to work, and they did. And obviously now we're talking to you basically an hour and a half after kids went back to class. We've heard from teachers in the classroom talking to us, certainly not speaking for all 51,000, but many of them sound demoralized, discouraged. All things considered, the government's strategy on this, the reality for teachers, the 4-year imposed deal, the notwithstanding clause, where's your head at?
You know, I'm looking at it from a variety of perspectives. I still have a child in public school, and I'm a former teacher, but also former labor and education minister. So I dealt with those issues from both ends. Ryan, what is happening right now, and I hope that all Albertans are starting to realize this, is unprecedented anywhere in Canada, and it's totally illogical. It's not even political. It is a show of power and some kind of a vendetta to quash the teachers or the labor movement, frankly, overall. There is legislation in place, and I actually, as a Minister of Labor, utilized it, where you can order essential services back to work. And no courts would argue that teachers staying out of school for too long become an essential service because the damage to children overweighs their labor rights. However, that legislation could have been implemented, and what you then do is you impose binding arbitration, and an independent arbitrator is appointed by two parties, and they stick with whatever that arbitrator says. That's the way it's normally done. And then if they don't like it, there is a process. There is a recourse process. In this case, government basically came down and said, we will not negotiate with you. Here is the contract. You have no choice whether you like it or not. And by the way, if you want to appeal it, we take that right away from you as well, because we're using this rarely ever in Canada used notwithstanding clause. This clause was put into effect in Canadian Constitution for dire situations where people's human rights are being violated. And it's sort of like a safety valve. When Premier Lougheed negotiated that clause, he hoped that it never has to be used. But it should never be used in labor disputes to kill negotiations, to take away judicial recourse if you're not happy with a contract. It's like dropping an atomic bomb, trying to kill an ant. It just really makes no sense. It's ill-advised politically. It's ill-advised legally, because it's abuse of people were complaining about Trudeau. Remember when he instituted what was called then martial law, taking away our rights? Well, that's exactly what Danielle Smith just did. She imposed a contract on teachers that doesn't address most of their problems. And she says, you're stuck with it. You if you like it or you don't, it doesn't matter to me. You can't appeal it anymore. That is serious undermining of collective bargaining and of our civil rights. We should always have a recourse and be able to appeal. This is a gross overreach and misuse of legislation.
Yeah, I want to give T. Hudson a shout out here. I'm not sure who that is. T. Hudson, I don't know personally, but tagged us in a post on X on Twitter yesterday and said the most interesting viewpoints I've seen today, the people who are mad at Justin Trudeau because of invoking the Emergencies Act are 100% in support of Danielle Smith. Invoking the notwithstanding clause, which I thought was kind of an interesting irony. We'll give
there is a
parallel, shout out there. Yeah, for sure. Thomas, one of the things about your Forever Canadian initiative was that it didn't strike me as inherently political. And I would imagine, like you pointed out to us, I know that there's a bunch of lefties that signed it. I know that there are a bunch of conservatives that signed it. Hell, you had former Premier Ed Stelmach on the show here with you talking about it. But Yttrium has an interesting proposal here. I think most people know that recall petitions have been initiated. The ball's rolling. Constituents looking to recall UCP MLAs, in some cases ministers, including the one we talked to just an hour ago, Demetrios Nicolaides, Angela Pitt down in Airdrie, and Rajan Sani, who, of course, was a candidate for UCP leadership. Yttrium says Mr. Lukaszuk needs to get his organization involved in the recall petitions. They have the infrastructure and boots to do it. That would ramp things up in a big way, and it would inherently politicize the group. I don't know if you would categorize that as a misuse of your member list or your mailing list, but is that something that you would consider? My guess is no.
No, and it wouldn't be the right thing to do. Forever Canadian, it has only one purpose, and the purpose is to make sure that Alberta stays in Canada, and we're building a community that is totally nonpartisan. Frankly, sort of in reverse, by the virtue of the fact that we have not only among volunteers and signatories, but in our organizing structure, we have representatives of all political parties in Canada, not only in Alberta. So we wouldn't do that. I am not a proponent of recall legislation. It's a populist thing that UCP government brought in. The irony in it all is that only UCP MLAs are considered for recall and nobody else. So they're sort of dying by the sword that they pulled out. But recall really, although some may argue it's a very democratic thing to do, it really undermines democracy. There are elections for choosing, and if we were to spend a little bit more time analyzing our candidates and political parties and maybe pay a little bit more attention to debates, we wouldn't have to regret the people that we have elected into our parliaments. But electing people often without deeper understanding of who these people are and then recalling them 6 months later is not really a democratic process. I think we should focus more on elections and get rid of this recall legislation.
Explorer Hollis kicking into our super chat says, I nearly crashed my bike hauling on the brakes to stop and sign the Forever Canadian petition. says, I hope that Thomas buys some volunteers coffee on Jespo and I. There you go. And Super Chat Ken kicking in 20 says, I got to buy several drinks for Thomas Lukaszuk. This is the thing, Thomas. This is how our audience members can buy us a beer. They help us stock the Real Talk beer fridge. He says, several drinks for Thomas. Among the darkness of removing people's rights, Thomas helped Albertans show their love for Canada in the best and most positive way. What a fantastic accomplishment. I couldn't possibly say it better than Ken.
Thank you so much, Ken.
Thanks for doing this, Thomas.
Ryan, thank you so much, and thank you for helping us getting the message out. You have an amazing show. You built up something. You built up a community as well, and I think many of our supporters and your listeners align.
Well, I agree with you, and I thank you for those kind words. And I think at a moment that I think would be easy to underestimate, which is the prominence or the growth or the rise in Alberta separatist sentiment. If a community platform like this, if a proud Alberta talk show is not going to stand up and reflect the conviction of the host, then what the hell are we even doing?
I agree.
Okay.
Thank you, Ryan.
Thanks for this. We'll see you soon.
Take care.
All right. That's Thomas Lukaszuk, former Deputy Premier, former Labour Minister, Education Minister, and obviously the founder of the Forever Canadian initiative. I kind of like that, with Ken saying buy several drinks for Thomas. You want to know something very interesting, Johnny? Is I've known Thomas kind of casually for like 20 years. I've known him pretty well for, I would say, like 15 years. I've interviewed him, I'm going to say 40 times ish. I've never socially had a drink with Thomas Lukaszuk, not once in my life.
Oh.
I think we need to get him into the Real Talk studio. And get them all set up. Maybe that could be like an exclusive event for, I'll be honest with something. Because he had reached out to us and we had mused about like we should do a Real Talk event and we could collect signatures for Forever Canadian. And you get kind of bogged down in everything else. The election's happening. The teacher strike was happening. We were doing a lot. We had our election night party, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I sound like I'm making excuses because kind of sort of I am. But part of me thought, I was looking at the turnout they were getting, and I was seeing how their volunteers were absolutely killing it, like just doing an amazing job. And I was like, I don't even know if we would draw enough people. I saw that they were, it sort of, to me, felt like you wanted to pack an auditorium if you were going to draw their volunteers away from anything else they were doing. Because everywhere I was going, it seemed, there were Forever Canadian volunteers there.
Yeah.
And like some of the late summer festivals, and I mentioned the farmers markets and like the community events and the sporting events. And it was like, I kept, my cousin Andrew always, uses this as a compliment. He'll, under his breath, he'll say, "You brilliant bastard." And I was walking past these people, just, "You brilliant bastards. Look at this." And 456,000 is no joke, my man, because I love, and Thomas's quip about the scoreboards are better for Blue Jays games than this. I'm going to respectfully disagree with him. He has more legislative experience than me. He has more political experience than me. I want the referendum because I want to see the number. I want to see the number. And if it's a nail biter, then we know that we've got our work cut out for us. When I say we, I'm talking about people who believe that Alberta should remain in Canada. I have friends and family members who believe Alberta should leave. I have robust and respectful decisions about it all the time. There's rumblings I'm actually going to be moderating an event that'll be a debate on the merits of either outcome here next month. And we'll give you details on that, Real Talkers, if you'd like to attend. I don't know about you. What would you like? Would you like to see a referendum? Like, do you want to? It's sort of one way, because if 50% plus one of Albertans say we got to vote to leave, then all of a sudden it's a mess for everybody. But if 85% of Albertans say we want to stay, then can we just quit the conversation, not bring it up ever again on the show?
Sure, but referendums cost money, and I think we're wasting money on things we shouldn't be having. I don't see this gathering steam. I mean, this proved it for me. 500,000 signatures, and he's crazy. He's right. Like, it was hard to sign this thing. I found it hard to sign this thing. I was like, I got to drive to wherever. And 500,000 people still signed it. Imagine if this thing was online, or if you could vote at, a public school like a block from your house. This would be a blowout. This would be, it would be 90% to 10%. Like, I have no doubt that, like, I get people are pissed off, and I get that people want this province to have a little more weight in Ottawa, a little more push, a little more pull, all of that. But I think the last thing on their minds is starting over from scratch. And I think most people who know numbers, and like, I don't know numbers, but I look at what separation costs. I look at what Quebec did. I look what some countries in Europe did when they changed from changed or left certain unions.
What about Brexit? Obviously, is probably the biggest one.
Of course, yeah, but even longer ago, the amount of years it takes to just restabilize, even if they did okay after that, this is not a time to do it right now. Like it's a ridiculous thing. But that's not to say that we shouldn't hear out people who are separatists. Like I said the other day in our reel and on the show that we posted, if you want to go check out Twitter or TikTok, like I think this is a good thing because it shows there are people who are staunchly like proud of this province and they want to say they're upset. I get it, but just, taking your ball and going home is the last thing we want to do. But let's listen to them. Let's hear their concerns, and a lot of their concerns are the same concerns we have, the people who don't want anything to do with separation. So let's work together to fix them, and then we won't need to leave. You know what I mean?
Ladies and gentlemen, another common sense.
No, it's just
empathy-driven take from the Wizard of Pods, Johnny Infamous.
My opinion is, somebody said the other day, they're like, you're not always articulate, but you know who you are? You're kind of like a refrigerator magnet. You've got that one tagline, and just I'm walking by the fridge, and I look over, and I'm like, I can't stare away from that refrigerator magnet. I'm like, you've just described my career as a refrigerator magnet. Damn you! First of all,
who described you as not articulate? I've got to say, well,
I'm an everyday guy like everyone else.
That's the whole point.
But that's what I believe. Like the majority of people I talk to, and I have some friends who are like way far right than I would like them to be, and have moved there since things like the pandemic happened and Justin Trudeau's 10 years in power and all these things. Like there are reasons why they went to the side that they're on right now. And even they are like, separation is the last thing I'm thinking of. What I want to be is a stronger voice as a province within the country, right?
I like that idea. Alicia in our live chat, powered by Park Power. By the way, get exclusive discounts on internet, electricity, and natural gas by checking out parkpower.ca/realtalk. Alicia says, I appreciate Mr. Lukaszuk's stance on this. Forever Canadian having one purpose keeps any messiness out of the next steps and other petitions. And Alicia is bang on that. Yeah. I think actually a lot of people would probably be a little bit, be a lot turned off.
If they turned it into a party.
Well, number one, if you turn it into a party, which is like an intriguing outcome, but you have to remember they said they wouldn't do that at the outset, including on this show. And so then if they do it, it's greasy. Right now, this thing is whistle clean.
It's so clean.
It's like, this is like a walk-off home run.
It's amazing.
It's just like boom.
You had to go down to a parking lot and physically sign this.
It's not an
you didn't
easy.
click a
These
box.
aren't electronic signatures, right? It's not easy. You can't sign on your phone. Yeah. These are actual. I signed it. I proudly signed it, but it's like pen to paper, name, address. I don't remember what else. Date of birth, maybe
they
phone
check
number,
your
and
residency,
signature
make
kind
sure
of idea.
you're from Alberta,
right? So think about that, guys. Like 400. What is that? Like off the top of my head, it's like 25 full NHL hockey arenas. That's how many physical signatures they collected. So the ball is over to the Alberta Separatists. And quite frankly, if you want to send a message right now, you got to get more than 500,000.
You got to have your own petition.
And they're working on it. They're working on this. And you can't, one of the brilliant parts about this, and I know I'm Captain Obvious here, but Danielle Smith and her government have lowered the threshold for signatures that could trigger a referendum to 170,000. If someone squeaks in with 170,001 and you've got one sitting there at 456,000, you pay more attention to the little guy. It's absolutely preposterous, ridiculous. Political commentators, including this one, would have a field day with it. And if separatists can go get more, which I challenge them to do, I don't know how you're going to do it. I guess that's your democratic right in the process, and then we'll have a conversation. But you've got now a bar that has been set so high. As far as we can tell, it was 15 years ago, Bill Vander Zalm, 700,000 signatures in BC.
I didn't even know about that.
Opposing, they didn't like the idea of the harmonized sales tax, the HST.
Okay.
Right? So 700,000 signatures there. But that would put this, and that's just a quick Google search.
Yeah.
That would put this at number 2. But the second most signatures in Canadian history, and certainly the largest petition in Alberta's history.
Yeah, for sure.
So I think that's a big one.
The door has opened to petitions now, and I don't think that was a good move by the premier and her team. Like, look at what now they're petitioning to recall the education minister, and petitions can just come out of nowhere. I don't know if lowering that threshold made sense, and especially now that we see this number. but it wouldn't have mattered. This petition would have blown out, 250. What was the old number before 170?
300. Well, it's 260. 200. I have it somewhere.
Yeah,
it's
so
like
this,
it's just under 300,000. 296, I think.
Yeah, this one's almost double, anyways. So yeah. I just for me, like I'll be honest right now. I wasn't sure if he would get the signatures. I knew that the amount of people who agree that we shouldn't separate are out there, but the way you had to go about it and everything going on right now, and we're back to the fiscal, and people are, well, they were back at
294,000.
There you go, 294,000. But just the way you had to do it, I was like, if this was online, it'd be 1 million like in 48 hours.
Sure.
But like the fact that you had to go somewhere, and I was like, man, how's he going to get the volunteers? But then he said he had thousands of volunteers. So I started to be, maybe they're going to make it. But then when I heard this number, I was like,
yeah.
Well, naturally, that's what I should have thought in the first place. But I didn't think it was going to get to that because you had to put pen to paper.
Well, you don't want an electronic petition because you want to eliminate any sort of doubt
that they're fake.
You want to take away, you want to cut off at the knees any criticism that's going to suggest you had people. It's like, you guys, there's a joke and we have fun with it. By the way, a few of your emails are coming up here on the show in just a minute. Glad for those of you that are joining us right now on our live stream presented by California Closets. Of course, you can go back to our feature interview presented by Mercedes-Benz Edmonton West with the Education Minister Demetrios Nicolaides, and then a remarkably well-spoken 17-year-old Evan Lee joining us out of Calgary. I appreciated what he had to say. But you look at a situation like this and you kind of go, that you don't want to have anybody that can suggest that people were voting from across Canada, or that people were voting twice, or that there was any sort of shenanigans happening, right? Like, there's a reason why when we present these Twitter polls that we'll do from time to time, we joke, we've trademarked it, not actually, but the unofficial, unscientific Twitter poll, because you're always going to get somebody in the comments going like, oh, I guarantee it's not just Albertans that are voting on this. I guarantee it's not just Canadians that are voting on this. It's like, yeah, no shit, man. It's Twitter. It's like a snapshot in time. We're giving you a general sense of how people might feel about it. But as you know, these Twitter polls can be commandeered and taken over. I actually love to see it when it happens. I've had Ezra Levant retweet a couple of my Twitter polls and take them in completely different directions. And it's pure entertainment for the talk show. But you can't have your petition in that same ballpark. You have to have your petition as bulletproof, rock solid. It's being dropped off at Elections Alberta. It's not being posted up on that fridge magnet just for people to see. This is an action plan that was carried to fruition.
You had to walk up. So, like, I mean, I don't know if they knew. I mean, Thomas was pretty sure he was going to get all these signatures. But, man, what you should have done is put a dash cam on the top of the tent of every one of these tents and just had a super sped up video of everybody walking up to play as like an after video, because
Wouldn't
that's
that be cool?
Literally, if you picture it in your mind, they had to drive to a parking lot, get out of their car, walk up, show ID, like this is foolproof. So I'm happy with the result because I'm like you. I like scoreboards. I do not want to spend money on a referendum.
How about this from Harrison in our live chat, powered by Park Power? Harrison says, I do agree that a referendum would be a waste of money. It would be divisive, and it would have negative economic consequences. Harrison sounding very reasonable in our live chat today. And by the way, Johnny, a lot of people are kind of jumping to your defense here. LJ says, I think Johnny has a lot of good points. You guys, I don't pump his tires a lot on the show because it makes him embarrassed and he actually hates it. But we get a ton of emails from you that reflect the value that Johnny brings to the show. And it's not an insult that you bring the every person perspective. That's something that every talk show needs.
I know.
And you do an amazing job of it.
I'm the baby carrots of the veggie platter.
You are thrown
There's
into...
an abundance of them. They're always there. You got to sprinkle them in, but there's always some left over too, and people are like, eh.
Have I not called you the Wizard of Pods on the show before? Because the live chat exploded when I did. That's his nickname around here, everybody. He is the Wizard of Pods. That's Johnny. We want to get to more of your thoughts here. Corradetti Motorsports, awesome to see you guys in the chat today. Says separation, if it ever comes to it, it'll take like half a century to be realized, and it will not include surface or grievance politics. It will have to stand on its own merits, which is not the case now. That's very well said. A lot of you were talking about license plates. Just kind of the different initiatives, the distractions here introduced by this government. JJ says Forever Canadian doesn't have to be a political party. It's a movement, and it's a powerful one. And I think that that's well said as well. You just got to be careful on how you utilize the strength of the movement, all right? Because once you got people starting to feel like, hey, listen, I signed up for this in good faith. I signed up because I'm a proud Albertan and a proud Canadian.
Don't abuse it.
But I'm not looking to start, I want to be involved in recalling the MLA out of Airdrie. That's not what I want to do, or I wasn't even signing up. You'd have some people, I guarantee, Thomas is coming across, I quite like Thomas, okay? I think that's obvious, but Thomas is a very polarizing individual. He gets that kind of gleam in his eye when he says that he wanted to attend the UCP AGM to participate in the leadership vote. That's a very brave move for him to walk into that room, right? And he's got that kind of gleam in his eye because, but not everybody loves Thomas. He's got big supporters, and as any high-profile politician does, he has some haters. Obviously. And so I think that, were he to try to twist this into bringing him back into sort of the political realm and starting a party, and he's going to be the leader, everyone will go, well, that's not what I donated to. That's not why I signed. So he's got to keep it clean.
I don't want to get an email, Thomas, next week to buy a bunch of merch with Forever Canada. No, I'm just kidding. I'll probably buy a shirt.
Whiterium followed up, by the way. To be fair, Whiterium had the question of whether or not Thomas would participate, leverage the movement for the recall petitions. Whiterium says, to be clear, I don't want Forever Canadian to get involved with the recall. I just want their infrastructure to put them under a different name. They have great organizational power and infrastructure. All right. JJ says, my cousin's having a vanity plate, a license plate made for his car that has strong and free, red X'd out and notwithstanding written in above. And I am here for it. Super Chat Ken says, I'd sign a petition yesterday to have a real public inquiry on the health scandal. Most of us know it wouldn't go well for Premier and her cabinet. And a shout out to Ms. KD for $10 into the Super Chat. How about this? I didn't see what happened here. She says, thanks for your zero tolerance in attacking a teenager on the show. Did somebody go after Evan Lee?
I
Should I
don't
even
know.
be surprised?
I have no idea.
Okay, well, thanks for Ms. KD.
I have no idea.
Look at that look. Look at that smirk. Don't forget, we're about to hear from our friends at Epcor here, and then I want to get to a few more of your emails. We got to pay a couple of bills. You can go top up your coffee. But again, you can always send us an email. Our inbox is flooded, and our team member, Katie, has basically spent her full days going through it to make sure that we're not missing anything. Just because we're getting more interaction from Real Talkers doesn't mean that your email is at risk of being missed. You can always reach us at talk@ryanjesperson.com.
Edmonton is here because the river is here. So we care for it, protect it, share it. The water of the North Saskatchewan sustains all of us. It's a big job to treat and deliver it, river to tap, to over 1 million people, so you can have and enjoy a glass of the Sask. On tap, made local by Epcor.
All right, friends, Halloween is almost here, and this week at your local Friesen Brothers, they've got everything that you need heading into Friday the 31st, starting with one-of-a-kind spooktacular produce. They've got vampire repellent, Alberta garlic grown right here. They've got that hairy fruit. Johnny, you know this? That rambutan. They've got tentacle lemons. They call it the Buddha's hand citrus. They've got ghost peppers. These Bhut Jolokia chilies. They can have a Scoville heat reading of over 1 million. I'm staying far away from those, but if heat is your thing, you'll find it at Friesen Brothers. They've also got family favorites like Halloween jack-o'-lanterns, pineapples, Frankenstein kiwis, and of course pumpkins. You can make your Halloween extra spooky with Friesen Brothers, including produce grown as close to home as possible. You can learn more at friesen.com. Just check out their weekly flyer. A reminder, this Saturday, November 1st, $15 off all grocery purchases, $75 or more between 9 a.m. and 9 p.m. You can learn details in store or on their website. UCAN Youth Services doing incredible work helping young people transition out of harm's way and onto a path of economic independence. They've got an opportunity, in particular for young adults, 17 to 25, to earn while you learn through their Verto and their Road to Work programs. You apply, you get accepted. Each program's different, but you're going to be participating in classroom sessions for approximately 8 weeks, kind of a 9 to 5 deal. You're going to be paid to participate, and then you're going to graduate with job-ready skills in many circumstances right into a job placement. They are doing amazing work at UCAN Youth Services, which is why they are our charity of choice this year. You can show your support or connect with those programs today at ucan.ca. Pathways Alliance is the Alberta oil sands answer to global energy and environmental demand. Alberta's oil industry, Canada's oil and gas industry, is powering the federal economy. You can learn more about the economic benefits by visiting pathwaysalliance.ca. And if you want to learn more about Pathways Alliance, 6 of Canada's largest oil sands companies working together to provide energy the world needs while advancing environmental innovation and projects, you can check out their website, pathwaysalliance.ca. A reminder, coming up this Friday, the 31st of October, we present a Real Talk Roundtable at the intersection of the environment and the economy. And if all this talk about careers has you thinking and maybe getting more serious about your own post-secondary journey, take a second today to check out the AU Advantage at athabascau.ca. Athabasca University offers world-class accredited online degrees and courses designed so you can complete your education wherever and whenever it works for you. There are hundreds of different programs and courses. You can explore them all online at athabascau.ca, including open undergraduate programs, flexible graduate programs, including the AU MBA, and of course, on-demand professional development. You can learn more, even apply today at athabascau.ca. Man, it's been an unbelievable couple of weeks with Real Talkers that have been sharing their takes with us, Johnny, and just sharing their thoughts, in particular, on the teacher strike, and of course, how it's wrapped up with students and teachers back in class. This is the first day, this show that we're doing today, the first day that they're back in class. As if I need to tell you, as if I need to tell this audience. Mike took some time to write into the show, talk at ryanjesperson.com. By the way, did I tell you this? Some folks have figured out you can also just email me directly to ryan at ryanjesperson.com. I never mind that. That's totally fine. Talk just makes sure that Katie sees it as well. She's our check and balance. But there's a physician down in the United States named Ryan Jesperson, and he spells his name S-O-N. I spell my name S-E-N.
Yeah.
And so this poor doctor down in Nebraska has been receiving like dozens of emails to Ryan at ryanjesperson.com. And this guy, I've never met him. I feel like we need to fly him up here, buy him lunch, show him the town. This guy, in good faith, has been forwarding every one of them to us. But if you are going to email the show, don't forget, the Alberta-based talk show host, Jesperson, is all E's and no O's. And our thanks to Dr. Jesperson down in the United States for his help with this. Mike wrote in and said, Jespo, I've been following your show since the start, even at your time at that terrestrial radio station. But this is actually the very first time that I feel compelled to write to you. First of all, thanks for your coverage of the teacher's strike and all you're doing for the province. As for my thoughts on the teacher's strike, I don't know where to begin, Mike says. I've been a public servant my whole career. I was a primary care paramedic in Edmonton. I've now been a public school teacher the last 6 years. Jeez, Mike. He says, I've gotten used to being on the blunt end of public policy brought on by the government, from a lack of ambulances when I was a paramedic to working in overcrowded classrooms, being stretched thin while trying to serve the children of this great province. He says, I am completely demoralized by the passing of Bill 2, the use of the notwithstanding clause. It's a dagger in the heart after several years of cuts at my school. He says we lost $500,000 in funding 2 years ago due to that new funding formula that the UCP introduced, and this meant laying off 8 EAs, 8 educational students in our school. He says, I worked in special ed at the time. Our entire EA staff was gutted. And in addition to these layoffs, the government cut funding to our resource room that was a space designed to meet the needs of students not in special ed classes. So those are those students that are oftentimes described by you guys in the media as complex students. Our resource room was staffed by a teacher and an EA, and it was a safe place for those students to get extra help, emotional supports, even food or a winter coat if their family couldn't provide it. Mike says that room is now closed. The strike was about bringing to light the challenges facing our schools. It was about taking a stand for our kids and their futures. It says, I'm going to go to work today, and I'm going to continue to serve my province as I always have, but I'll admit I feel lost. It says, I feel hopeless. I always knew this government doesn't care about public servants, but I had this hope that they would never go to this extent to prove it. Mike says, my ask of all Albertans and real talkers, remember this. Remember what this government's done while touting the message that we are all strong and free. He says to you and Johnny, keep doing what you're doing. Gerry CC'd us on a letter to her honor, the Honorable Salma Lakhani, the Lieutenant Governor of Alberta. Gerry taking a bit of a different angle on this. Your Honor, I am writing to respectfully urge you to not grant royal assent to Bill 2, the back-to-school bill. I saw a few of you in the live chat musing about this, by the way. Could the Lieutenant Governor stop this legislation? I don't think she would. Says the legislation represents a clear breach of the charter rights of Alberta's teachers by overriding their fundamental freedoms of association and collective bargaining. These rights, protected under Sections 2D and 15 of the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, form the foundation of a fair and democratic society. This government's decision to impose restrictions on teachers through this bill without genuine consultation or respect for established labor rights sets a troubling precedent that undermines constitutional protections for all workers in Alberta and has wider implications across the country. Gerry says further, the process by which this was introduced, Bill 2, and passed was undemocratic and unprecedented. The government's accelerated timeline, limited debate, prevented public input, and parliamentary scrutiny, which are essential components of a functioning democracy. To grant royal assent under such circumstance would legitimize a process that erodes the integrity of our democratic institutions. I therefore, says Gerry, respectfully request you withhold assent until this legislation can be properly reviewed in light of its constitutional and procedural shortcomings. Gerry sounds like a smart person. Sounds like a smart human being right there.
Great email.
And I wanted to read this from David as well. David CC'd us on his email to the Premier of Alberta. We always appreciate when you CC us on this. It keeps us in the loop, and we think it also sends a message to legislators who oftentimes will grant our interview requests and agree to appear here on the show. Many cases in exclusive situations. Dave says, Premier, I'm writing to express my outrage and my deep disappointment. And by the way, guys, you're noticing these aren't qualifying for the flamethrower. Just wait for Friday. Just wait for Friday. We've already got about 30 of them. We're going to have to cut them down. But if you have a fiery take on this, send it to us. Talk at RyanJesperson.com. The flamethrower always presented by the DQs of Northwest Edmonton and Sherwood Park. David to the Premier says, my outrage and deep disappointment over your government's decision to invoke the notwithstanding clause to impose an unwanted contract on Alberta's teachers, as well as setting a dangerous precedent for eroding workers' rights and the rights of unions in this province. It says, I unequivocally condemn your choice to engage in this autocratic and simplistically unprincipled behavior. The action is cowardly, undemocratic, and a betrayal of the principles of good faith negotiation. Rather than working collaboratively to resolve the labor dispute, your government has chosen the most heavy-handed, authoritarian tool available, silencing teachers and trampling on their charter rights. Your use of this clause exposes a broader and deeply troubling agenda to overwhelm and dismantle the very public services that Albertans rely on. Teachers have been negotiating in good faith. It's your government that refused to do the same, ignoring every other means or mechanism available to reach a fair and respectful resolution. David says Albertans deserve a government that listens, negotiates, and leads with integrity, not one that hides behind legislative loopholes and abandons democratic process when it becomes inconvenient. David says, I urge you to withdraw this reckless action. She won't. And return to the bargaining table in good faith. Our teachers and our students deserve better. That from David. Now, the education minister telling us today that the ATA, or at least teachers, will be invited to participate in this government task force. The degree to which that is effective or establish itself as credible remains to be seen. And we continue to solicit your perspectives on this as Albertans navigate and as Canadians watch over these next few days. 51,000 teachers, 740,000 students back in class amid circumstances that are far less than ideal. Our coverage on this will continue in large part due to your support. Thank you for those of you that have subscribed to the show in the last little while. Johnny, I saw you give a shout out to Jennifer and Simi and Lori and Evan that all signed up to become Real Talk YouTube channel members. That comes with some exclusive perks, including, by the way, do I float this? I think I'm going to float this. We're not giving it away yet. The contest is not yet open, but our YouTube channel members and our Real Talk Patreon supporters, you can learn more at ryanjesperson.com. Just click on the connect link to learn more about our Patreon. Will be entered to win season tickets to go check out Edmonton Opera.
Oh,
how cool is that?
Nice,
That's just another perk that'll be coming up as a benefit for those that are supporting Real Talk in those membership ways.
Yeah, I love the Edmonton Opera. I hang out in the very back row if you guys want to find me on my phone.
On your phone. No.
Well, I have to be alert at all times. I have to keep an eye on the email.
It's going to be Johnny.
Even though I'm enjoying the arts and decompressing and relaxing, there's pertinent stuff going on in the province and the country.
It's
that I
like,
need to be,
here's Johnny, they're like, Figaro, Figaro, Figaro. And then in the back row,
no.
We promise we won't.
I'm pretty sure you could buy a nice glass of wine.
Sell a nice
there.
glass of wine you can bring in.
That's better.
Maybe probably beer in a glass. That might be how they do it. Anyway, Real Talkers, we sure appreciate your support. The number one thing you can do is support our sponsors. You can tell your friends about these episodes. You can rate and review our podcast, and you can share what we're putting out on YouTube. We do believe that this show continues to grow because of you and because of your advocacy, and we hear it at one-on-one levels. We hear it at the grassroots level from people who write in and say, my friend told me I had to check out this episode. That means more people hear it. That means that our voice becomes stronger, our reach bigger as we continue to advocate for a stronger Alberta and a more beautiful Canada. We'll be back at it tomorrow. We hope you'll join us then. Thanks.
Go Blue Jays!
Real Talk is hosted by Ryan Jesperson, executive producer Josh Dunford, technical producer John Hicks, general manager Katie Cook-Chivers, account coordinator Lawrence Derlego, human resources Lena Shepard, website design Mike Johnston, voiceover by me, Carrie Skelton, member emerita Julie Rohr. Real Talk is recorded in Edmonton, Alberta on Treaty 6 territory, the traditional and ancestral territory of the Cree, Dene, Blackfoot, Saulteaux, and Nakota Sioux, home to the Métis settlements and the Métis Nation of Alberta. Real Talk is a relay project. For more, check out ryanjesperson.com.